Владимир, благодарим вас за интересный доклад и презентацию, и вашу презентацию. А сейчас хочу передать слово моему коллеге Юрию. Он представит вам следующего докладчика от компании Legrand. Кстати, как вы видели на предпоследнем слайде, биометрические терминалы Suprema установлены на заводе Legrand во Франции. Ну, как вы видите, не только мы комплексно подходим к нашим с вами совместным проектам, но и наши вендоры. Итак, коллега, вам слово.
Добрый день, уважаемые участники конференции. Меня зовут Юрий Мыц, я являюсь ведущим инженером IQ Trading по направлению ЦОД. Сегодня мы предлагаем рассмотреть тему «Новые тенденции построения центров обработки данных». Спикером по данной теме приглашен ведущий эксперт Центров обработки данных Legrand, координатор Европы по подготовке стандартов, председатель Голландского комитета по стандартам для дата-центров и член координационной группы по зеленым дата-центрам нормативов CLC, эксперт по стандартам ЦОД и СО. Можно перечислять эти регалии еще долго, но самое интересное, что человек этот очень опытный, очень известный, и мы с удовольствием заслушаем этот доклад. Доклад будет на английском, а мне будет помогать господин Сергей Новичков, компания Legrand Украина, для перевода текста при необходимости. Доклад будет читаться медленно на английском языке, но достаточно понятно. Мы попросили этого докладчика.
Коллеги, добрый день. Меня зовут Сергей, компания Legrand Украина. Я хочу пригласить моего коллегу Ника. Ник, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, so you can start.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Just a moment. Wait, I have to do this one and then share my screen and take the correct one and take this one and I say share. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I go to my first slide. If I go too fast or things are not going well, please inform me. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Everything working? Okay, perfect.
Yes, perfect.
I'm having to move one thing. Okay, here on my desktop. Okay, so this is a presentation about data centers, and go back to the first slide about the construction of data centers. And as we have seen in the previous presentations, data centers are everywhere. I saw a nice picture of Equinix, and yeah, Equinix, it's a lot of places of Equinix, there are a lot of products of Legrand in there. And what you see is that data centers are becoming more and more important. And what I want to do is explain a little bit about what's happening lately in data centers. Who is me? Niek van der Paal is my name, working in the Netherlands at Minkels, but I coordinate standards for Legrand in Europe. I'm active in the Netherlands and also in Europe in creating standards for data centers. And to create a standard for data centers, it is very nice to understand what's happening in data centers. So I try to understand that. And in this presentation, I want to explain a couple of things about standards, how they influence design, but even more about what's happening in data centers and about trends happening in data centers and in data center design. But here a couple of terms we will discuss about, and one of them is EU Code of Conduct about energy efficiency, and also one, and some of you maybe heard of it, is PUE, Power Use Effectiveness, and that is something, it's a KPI, a key performance indicator, which can be used to look how good your data center is in energy efficiency, also if you designed it. Well, you know, probably all are heard about Legrand. If we talk about data centers and Legrand, most of the time you hear the brands Raritan, Minkels, Raritan about the power distribution, Minkels about cabinets and containment, but Legrand has far more. And well, one of the things is about cable management as shown here. You probably know worldwide brand, a couple of figures here. But Legrand is more than those brands. And just recently, Starline joined the group. We have a very good cooperation and have integration with Bori on UPSs. And for sure, you heard that we have a lot of things also going on from Italy, and two of them I showed here is distribution bus bars and transformers. So actually within the Legrand portfolio, there are a lot of things covering everything in the data center from, well, let's say power coming in to all the way what's happening inside cabinets. And we stop about where the IT starts, although I show a little bit about that we're also getting there quite close into. And
Nick, excuse me, can I interrupt you for just for a second? I want to ask my colleagues about translation.
Yes. Okay.
Коллеги, я хотел бы поинтересоваться, насколько необходим перевод, потому что мы Ника просили говорить максимально простыми словами, короткими простыми предложениями. Вот. Но хотели бы уточнить, надо ли переводить, все ли понятно, чтобы не затягивать презентацию, и это было более информативно. Ну, есть предложение так и продолжить на английском языке. Вот хотел бы узнать вашу реакцию. Прошу написать в чат. So, let's continue, Nick. It's okay. Not necessary.
Okay, I will try not to speak too fast, but I always want to tell a lot of things, and then it's sometimes not that easy to talk slowly.
Yes,
okay.
A little bit slowly and a little bit simple.
Yeah.
And
I will try.
Okay.
Well, like I explained about Legrand, you can also read things, what we're doing. We also have white papers, documentation. Most of it can be found on our websites. We try to publish about what's happening in data centers and why things are happening in data centers. Now, this picture about actually what's happening and why are data centers getting so important? It might be looks very simple. Okay, yes, it's happening, but there are a couple of things which are really pushing it. One of them, which I put here in the middle, is 5G. And yes, 5G happens a lot also at the end with the telephones and with the masts and with the communication part, but there's a lot of things behind it. And there are a couple of trends driven by what's happening on 5G. What's also here is what's happening on the edge. What is the edge? Or is the edge already there? And why is this all happening? And that is at the left. We are using more and more of communication. We see now for sure in the whole Corona crisis, COVID-19 crisis, that without communication, our countries would completely stop. And I got no idea how we could have worked if we didn't have all the things and all the things around data centers, etc. And I think there can be all kind of crises happening, but we still keep on using all these electronics and all this equipment. But behind it, we have to talk and look what is important there. What I put up here, and you see 3 pillars, and that is very important in data centers. And that is, one is availability. That's what we see now with all the things around the pandemic. We want to have everything working, and then the society can continue. The other thing, which is at this moment a little bit in the background, but it is very important, is everything around energy efficiency. We talk about global warming, we talk about all the things around it, and we don't want to use more energy than necessary. And also energy costs money, so energy is very important. And then thirdly, security. We've seen in the previous presentation how important security is. And that's in data centers, it is very important to understand that the data is safe and to understand who got access to all the data. Here again on the availability, there are a couple of standards there, and we can look at those standards and then see and use them if we build a data center. And I got here 3 types of standards which are quite important. If I start with the columns with the middle one, it's very well known. Uptime Institute got tier leveling, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 being the highest, and it's a good standard, but there are some restrictions to it. It's only about actually availability. And that's the second thing, it is run very strictly from the US, and it's not always that it is that easy to understand why things are. So what we did in the world is trying to make standards which are available for everybody and everybody can cooperate. And that are the group of standards. In Europe, they are called EN 5600. They are called on world scale ISO 22237. And all the countries which you see in the 2 maps are involved in creating these standards. And yes, we have very similar also the availability classes, but also the other things what I had in the previous slide. So you see how working together in the world can help in creating good quality data centers according to a standard. This is really a trend that we see that it is important for data centers. What I got at the right here is a picture of, well, it is the data center of the RATP in France, in Paris, the metro. And that is a good example of a data center which, well, most of the white space and also in the electrical space of the components are from Legrand. It was a good and a challenging project where we have to look at all the different aspects, because you have to have availability. If the data center is not running, the metro is not running. So it is very important to have everything good and well established. And that's where you can use standards to understand what you're doing. But I also got here something about ASHRAE. And well, it also got classes, and in the next slide, I will look a little bit deeper into it and look at what's happening there. And it might very much be interesting to see what are the trends. And so I take the next slide, and there's a lot of data on here. So this is a little bit, maybe a little bit confusing, but so I emphasize here, it's something about recommended temperatures. And this is what we see here, recommended temperatures between 18 and 27. Well, this is what ASHRAE did. They discussed together with the large manufacturers of equipment, with HP, with Lenovo, with IBM, with Dell. They discussed what is the best temperature of all the equipment to run on. So all the servers made for data centers can run on 27 degrees easily all the time. This helps in two things. This helps to understand that if you run data centers on this temperature, they will be available. The service will run. That is one thing. And the second thing is that the higher the temperature in a data center, the more energy efficient it can be. So here we can create data centers which are very reliable, and we understand that they can work. The other thing is also important, and this comes all from the ASHRAE standard. And it says there's also an allowable range. And the allowable range says you can go to 32 degrees. So all the equipment made for data centers does not stop or fail if it runs to 32 degrees Celsius. So this is what you really can use if you're operating a data center. So if you are in a climate where you only got limited time that the temperature is higher, you can most of the time use free cooling for cooling the data center. And maybe only a couple of days a year, you need extra things to have something to do that you, if it runs outside to 40 degrees, that you have to cool. This is good to understand how this works and where this comes from. So this comes from ASHRAE. Well, there was also asked to understand or to explain a little bit about the EU Code of Conduct. Well, EU Code of Conduct and it's a group of, or started as a group of stakeholders, all data centers, manufacturers, users, people from the European Union to understand how can we make data centers more energy efficient. What they did is they got 150 best practices and put them all together in one document. There's a link here, and you can Google on it. It's a free document, and it got 150 different practices. If you use them, it's very easy to make your data center more energy efficient. What you also can do, you can be part of a scheme. So you can use the logo and say, okay, I'm using the best practices and I'm an energy, I improve my energy efficiency in my data center. This is an example of one of those best practices in the Code of Conduct. And it says, well, design hot and cold aisles. So it says, if you do that, that really helps. The value at the right, you see, is 5, and it can be a 1 to 5 in this best practice. So it says it's very valuable to do it. Actually, it says a little bit like you're stupid if you don't. I do it both if you have new equipment, but also if you retrofit, if you rebuild your data center. And this is just one of the 150 best practices. And the document got a lot of very good and interesting things to understand how to make a data center energy efficient. Another trend, well, this has nothing to do, it looks like, with data centers. Well, this is the Maslow pyramid, which, well, this is actually what we see, what we all need. And I think data centers is also quite high in the top. The only thing where we got extra to it is lately is we need Wi-Fi. If you don't have Wi-Fi, okay, we're also gonna have a problem. And lastly, that is also quite recent, we also need batteries. So this is a change, and that changes, and maybe I think if they make a new pyramid, they can add it to it. But it's just beside, but you see that IT is getting more and more important for everybody. But now seriously, back to trends. Here you see what happened the last couple of years. We see importance of the public cloud. But then we started having the hybrid cloud. And the hybrid cloud, I will give some examples of it. And that's where you see that the IT is in different locations. Partly it is in larger data centers, but also partly it can be on premises. We see all kinds of different mixtures. It's not only public cloud, it is both. And And that's what I said in the overall slide, we see that 5G is getting more and more important. And actually what we see that is that the telco domain and the IT domain is getting one. It used to be different. We were talking about telephones and about computers, and now our telephone is a computer. And we see also the technology behind it, we see it 100% merging. And you see all kinds of, the whole telco domain is getting more and more software and less hardware. But that's not the only thing. There are things happening, and that is, and then I talk about the edge. Maybe not that good recognizable, but this is what you have at the edge at the end to make a 5G network. It's some hardware you need there. And you need antennas. And when we think about 5G, we think about antennas and outside. But don't forget that at this moment, and even more now, about 90% of the time we are inside and we are not outside. So it's not only 5G outside antennas which can reach us, for sure not if we go to high frequency. So we need more. So we see more and more closer to, let's say, the end users, we see data centers coming. And one of the trends we see is that there are coming remotely operated containers with IT equipment in it. And that's a mixture of, let's say, a telco-based unit, but it is actually a small data center. It is exactly the same build-up as a data center. It has a class, an availability class. So it is a data center, but it is remotely operated. And we see that there's a lot of, multi we need in it. But it can also be, because a lot of the time we're inside. So it can be inside buildings. So we see also remotely operated mini data centers. And these are two examples of it, how they can be physically made. We see a move there, but we see at this moment the development of all the technology to do it all remotely, to integrate it, but it is not yet clear how big the volume will be. So that will be very interesting to see what is happening there. But this is also the edge. This is an example. I will also in the next slide to talk about it. This is also about, it's an edge data center. It is, this is a data center in Eindhoven in the Netherlands, where Philips is based. And we see that companies, Philips companies are putting part of their edge, let's say their data center capability inside a data center like that. So there they also want to have a close proximity. Latency can be very important. And that's why how I come to the next slide. Well, if we want to understand what is happening in the edge, we have to see where are the demands. And we're gonna look at a use case. Where is the IT used for? And here is a survey, and they looked at where is it important. Well, we see smart city. Yeah, we've seen pictures in the previous presentation about Singapore and how in cities things are moving, and we see IT is needed there. But what we see at this moment, a lot of interest in connecting industry. We see industry more and more. We used to have all the data centers close to the industry, more moving also to a general data center, a hybrid cloud, but also quite close, because latency is very important for connecting industry. So if we look at use cases, we can see where we have the new development. IoT is usually important, but IoT can be concentrated on different way, and then it depends on where you need the data centers. This is an example of a twin data center we held building This is in Italy, in the south of Italy. It's a factory of Peugeot, Citroën, Fiat, 300,000 cars a year. And it is very reliable. It has to be very reliable how the IT is made. So they have on premises a twin data center. So if one data center fails, the other one can take in. And it is because of being with continuous processes, latency is very important. So you see here edge on premises. But if you have a very good connection to a local data center, it could also be a local data center. You have to look at latency, but it is possible. You don't have to be on premises. We see there's a more rethinking in this part. And also what we see here in the edge that is not only servers then coming into data centers, but it's other equipment, which actually is and then via fiber connecting to the industry. Very interesting developments. Latency is hugely important. Here I got another trend. A data center, is an example of a data center in London. And now we're looking more at trends, what's happening inside the data center. What you see here is that we see more and more, traditionally we had cold aisles, we see more and more also hot aisles. Actually, everything is possible at this moment. The only thing what you have to do is separate hot and cold air. Not only because of being energy efficient, but very much because of controlling the environment. As I showed in the X-ray slide, we don't want to go above 27 degrees. If we use very good separation of hot and cold air, for sure, the computers only get the temperature from the cold area, and we can control it very well. So we see a lot of things happening there. The example what I gave here you see here, it's our engineering department who works together with the data center to have a very good design. Then if we zoom in a little bit, what's happening then inside such a data center? We see here an example. This is at the left, a new cabinet line we designed, and we see higher cabinets. That's one of the things. It used to be cabinets, let's say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, even when I started, the cabinets were 2 meters high, and now they're almost 2.5 meters high. We want to use the floor very efficient. So one of the things what we see is higher cabinets. The other thing what we see here, same with energy efficiency, but also about controlling, is making everything very airtight. You have then a very controlled environment and you understand what's happening there. And here I got examples more. You're not only doing it inside the cabinet, but extra to it. Another trend you can see here, and that is what we looked at, really the use cases of cabinets. And sometimes they want to use two cabinets next to each other together. But later on, it changes and want to separate them. So we made a feature so we can later on slide in a side panel. So we can design something and then later on make a compartmentalization between two cabinets, or you can take it out. The other thing what's happening there, we see that equipment is getting heavier, and we see that the demand for cabinets having high load capacities is increasing. So that's all our cabinets can be loaded with 1,500 kilograms. Overall, more IT per square meter. That's what we see. Another trend, I thought there might be, okay, can I see? Oops, no. My here is not working, sorry. This is on security. We see that security is getting more and more important. And one of the let's say, features used that often, but getting more and more important, is using asset management. So what you do with asset management is you label all the equipment, and equipment gets a tag to it, and it is fixed to the equipment. And only if somebody takes out the equipment, well, there will be a sign, and you understand that something happening there, what should not happen, or even just to register what's happening. This is what you see all over. So we see that the racks are getting what we call a smart rack. It is that we look at what's happening in the rack, and the security part is important, but also the whole power distribution. And we want to understand what all the equipment is doing. So you see at the left the different, let's say, items you can look at, and one of the things is environmental monitoring. So you can add sensors to the smart rack, and it's all around the smart PDU. You can add sensors to it, and you can remote monitor. You understand what's happening. You can also remote switch. You can switch on and switch off.
Nick, excuse me, I'll interrupt you. We have just 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah,
so,
sure. I will finish in time, no problem.
Perfect.
Yeah. Even more on the smart rack, and that is what we've seen also the last couple of months. It is so important to control and understand what's happening inside your cabinet. And we have a whole range of products, and you see that there's a lot of interest gaining in this area, how to control remotely what's happening in the rack, both switching on and off, etc., but also controlling on operating system, and have offline control of the data center and the equipment in it. Just to touch, these are what's happening on cabling. We all know that it is increasing speed, and that's going on and on and on. But what we see lately is power over Ethernet. It's getting more and more important, and more buildings are designed with power over Ethernet, simplifying the whole cabling, and having a lot of opportunities. The power over Ethernet getting the higher power usage up to 100 watts. So there is a lot of things happening there. And just lately we see things happening with two-wire Ethernet. A lot of, also in standard, there's a lot of interest, and that will be the next thing is two-wire Internet. And it's not only in cars, but also we see it at other places becoming more important. Another trend, and that is really, it is if you design your data center, make it scalable. So use modular components, so you don't have to bring in a very large data center up front, but start with a scalable design. And do it with low maintenance plug and play modules, so you just can easily take them out. And for sure, and that's possible now, it can be very high efficient, very high energy efficiency. I don't know why my click now they run. Okay. Flexibility and scalability. Two examples here. One, what we see with the Starline bus bar. You can have top-up boxes everywhere. You don't have to have the complete design up front. It is very easy usable. And what we see at the right, you see an example of a standalone corridor. So you make a corridor, and later on you can add on cabinets. So you don't have to build up everything in advance. You can add the cabinets later on. But you can do everything around containment, about monitoring, about fire, etc. can be done up front, and you don't have to do it, design everything and put all the cabinets already in the beginning. And that's another thing what we see as a trend and as a change. I talked now a couple of times about energy efficiency. It is important. You can use best practices, but what is very important is to measure it. If you don't measure, you can't control. And it is the same like what we see at this moment in Formula One. I'm very happy it's going to start again this weekend. If you don't measure, they can't improve. And that's the same in a data center. So I hope I can see this on Sunday. I don't know, but I hope this will happen with a lot of good measurements. So here are my key takeaways, the last part. Use data center standards. Ask the experts. So if you got questions on that, please ask us. Availability is very important, but you have a choice. You can choose having a lot of redundancy. You can choose to have a certain availability. Understand that. The edge is remote controlled. That's the next thing. The edge is not no people there. You have to control it remotely. The future is unknown. We didn't expect to having the whole Corona crisis. So build scalable, build flexible. You are ready for the future. If you don't measure, you can't control. Very important. You don't understand what's happening. You can't change things. And what is very important altogether is use reliable partners to understand, and they can help in getting good solution. So all this together, you can build better data center. If you want to understand about and read more about the different examples I showed, we just have a very new data center insights just released last week with a lot of information on different projects about the shuttle car projects, and the different others are in it. Am I within the 5 minutes?
Nick, unfortunately, we have no time for questions.
Okay.
Unfortunately. So if we will have some questions from chat or mail, I'll send you.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you for a brilliant presentation. Unfortunately, a short time period. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Коллеги, всем большое спасибо, что прослушали презентацию. Да, к сожалению, не было времени задать вопросы вот к такому человеку, который принимал участие в разработке нормативов, которые мы используем при проектировании, не только мы, вся Европа. Но если будут какие-то вопросы, обращайтесь, мы их, конечно, будем транслировать Нику, он на них ответит. Nick, thank you very much.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.